became a career firefighter with the Howard County Department of Fire and Rescue Service, the chief of the medical division, or EMS, the unofficial historian of the Howard County Department of Fire and Rescue Services. Over 65,000 digital images and newspaper articles, magazine articles, etc. Episode 24-29, taking a look into the past. Today, what we're going to be doing is looking at the past of Ellicott City. Thanks to the Baltimore and Ohio Ellicott City Station Museum. Many of the images that you'll be seeing will be courtesy from the Ellicott City Museum. We'll be looking at quite a few pictures of the past. Most of them will be around the train station itself, and it's just kind of interesting to see how things have evolved over the years, and again, just looking at history. This is just an image of the Baltimore and Ohio Ellicott City Station Museum. And again, courtesy of them, most of the, not all, but most of the images that we'll be seeing in a couple minutes are thanks to them and from their particular website. In case you all have not had the opportunity, I would highly recommend that you actually go to the B&O Ellicott City Station Museum and look at history, local history, not only local, but it ended up being a part of the history of the United States. First image we're looking at around 1937, Main Street at Maryland Avenue. What we're looking at now is the train station itself is to the upper left. Maryland Avenue, where the car is sitting, the young man is Main Street. And apparently at one time, there were stairs that came down to a pavilion that you can see sort of in the center. And there's actually, just to the right, there was a store. I guess you could buy stuff, drinks, coffee, cigarettes, etc. Obviously, that structure is no longer around, but it gives you an insight of how things looked in the past. Just part of the history also is that this is an aerial photograph of Ellicott City Station back during Hurricane Agnes, and you can see the floodwaters inundating on three sides of the train museum itself. This is just a little bit of history of the railroad that opened from Baltimore to Ellicott City and points beyond. You can see the distances and also the years that the railroad was open. Baltimore to Ellicott Mills was 14 miles. Baltimore to Frederick was 61 miles. Baltimore to Point of Rocks was 69. Baltimore to Harper's Ferry, 81. Baltimore to Hancock, 123 miles. Baltimore to Cumberland, 178 miles. And they even extended the rail line to Piedmont, a total of 205 miles from Baltimore, and even to Fairmont in West Virginia, a total of 302 miles. And all this was completed prior to 1852. So from 1830 to 1852, the rail line was conducted and completed 302 miles, which I think is incredible. This is just an image showing the train schedule from Baltimore to Ellicott City back in 1830, the time frame when the train would leave Baltimore and arrive at Ellicott City and the return trip. The price for the ticket was 75 cents. I don't know what that computes to today, but that would have made for a nice outing, a nice day to get from Baltimore to Ellicott City and back. Again, just an image of the train station itself. On the left, shelter on the opposite side for passengers to sit in. As you notice with this image and several of the images, there were two sets of tracks that ran along the Patapsco River, allowing for trains to pass each other without collisions. We're looking at inside the caboose at the museum. You can actually see sort of in an elevated position where the conductor would sit and could look outside of the caboose itself because it was in a raised position and could see essentially what was going on, I guess checking for hot boxes or derailments, etc. Just another image. It was heated by coal furnace, cold stove, as you can see on the right. This is just an image around 1969 or so, aerial image of Ellicott City. You can see just to the north of the bridge crossing the Patapsco River, a dam that was used to funnel water to the mill just out of the picture to the right. This image was taken around 1960, 1969. This jolly fellow around 1850, sitting on a rock on the Howard County side of the Patapsco River, sort of behind, immediately across the river would have been the mill, and he's looking north towards Ellicott City as it was back in 1850. He was in his finery with a top hat, and kind of interesting. Again, 1937, this is a more complete image of the train station and a stairway that went down to Maryland Avenue to the shelter that individuals could wait for the trolley to come along, and a convenience store, I guess an early 7-Eleven store on the other side where individuals could get drinks and what have you. This is interesting for a bunch of reasons. Back in during the Second World War and closer to 1945, individuals, prisoners of war, German prisoners of war, were brought to the Ellicott City area and were used as daytime laborers for the farms. Since many of the men were all fighting the war, the local farmers were able to come to a location, were able to get prisoners of war who had been vetted, we'll say, and would take them back to their farms where they'd worked on the day and then bring them back. This particular location, some of you may already recognize it, is at the intersection of St. John's Lane and Frederick Road. The building on the right still exists today. Over the years, it's gone through many transitions, but this is an image of the location where prisoners of war who were granted work details would come and be distributed to the farmers. This is about 1945. I'll ask you in this picture at the moment, look between the building and the first telephone pole, because as same picture, but as you look at this, St. John's Lane ran right below or right in front of that steep hill that you can see there. That's no longer there. That hill at some point had been removed. And I do know that there had been an insurance agency there. Melville Scott & Sons was positioned there. They had removed much of the earth and made a lot there that Melville Scott was able to conduct his business. As long as I've been alive, that predated me, but that's kind of neat to realize that there was almost a vertical wall of earth prior to 1950 or so. Again, just another image of Ellicott City's train station. 1973 is the approximate year for the station. Again, 1969, another picture just showing the train station, and then the bridge going across the Patapsco River. And just north of the bridge, that's towards the top of the picture, you can see the low-level dam that existed, that back in the day diverted water to a little canal that would go down to the mill and power the equipment. The dam has been gone since Hurricane Agnes. You can also see, again, the train station and also E.T. Clark's hardware store and business adjacent to the Patapsco River. And apparently back in 1969, he also had a large quantity of fuel that was stored there and was eventually gone because of the Hurricane Agnes. This is just another picture of the bridge, railroad bridge crossing over Main Street. You'll also notice that it is a double arch bridge that's no longer there. Looking through the arch, you can see a milk truck wagon that had picked up milk and potentially taken it to the train station for delivery into Baltimore. Again, just another image of Main Street and the train station to the left, the railroad bridge crossing over, and you can see the streetcar tracks coming down Main Street and then forming a single lane going across into Baltimore County. Again, looking at the train station from the Maryland Avenue side, you can see two examples of vehicle trunks. Literally, the vehicle closest to us, vehicle had literally a trunk attached to the rear of the vehicle, and I guess that's where they got the name trunk, modern day vehicles. And then you can see another vehicle right in front of that one dark vehicle that actually has what we would consider the traditional trunk of a motor vehicle that we are used to today. And another image of the Ellicott City station and the platforms that you can see where passengers could get on and off. And I guess during its heyday, the quite a few passengers got on the trains and off the trains, because you can see various loading areas and platforms extending over the bridge of Main Street to where passengers could sit and wait for the train to arrive. Again, you can see dual tracks in front of the station, and there's even a crossover where trains could change tracks as needed and hopefully safely done. Again, just another image of the train station. The warehouse that you can see just to the left of this image is where they used to store bulk items, either to load onto the train or to store taking it off of the train for locals to pick up. Again, just another image of the Ellicott City train station. To the left, folks could cross over the tracks into a shelter on the opposite side, on the east side of the tracks, to head to points west. Again, just another image of the train station and the loading platforms on both sides of the track. So apparently there's quite a lot of activity, train activity back in the day, and passenger activity back in the day. This image is from around 1949. You can see a couple vehicles at the station, either to drop off passengers, pick up passengers, or produce or items. Again, just the warehouse that was adjacent to this train station, that bulk items could be offloaded to place into the warehouse or from the warehouse to the train car. And actually there's a box car that's sitting right there, so they're doing something, taking on or taking off bulk items. Just an image of Ellicott City. The train station is lower center, and old Ellicott City is to the rear. You can actually make out Main Street going up and going west on Frederick Road. You can see actually Columbia Pike and Tongue Row in the upper left-hand corner. And the big barn-looking structure, top center, is actually the church, a Methodist church, I believe, off of Court Avenue. 1973 image of the train station. This image is of the telegraph room and ticket office of the Ellicott City train station back in the day. And you can certainly read for yourselves, for whatever reason, the ticket window on the right was for men, and the ticket window that would have been on the left would have been for women and children. Go figure. That would not work today. Ellicott City was used as a movie set for the film The Goddess back in the 50s, mid-50s, if I remember correctly. This is just a shot of a bus that was an integral part of the movie coming into Ellicott City. This image is showing the train station and then more of Ellicott City back in the day. You can see Main Street to the left, heading west. You can make out Tongue Row of Columbia Pike on the top left-hand corner. And you can make out Church Road sort of on the top right. And the barn-looking structure is the Methodist church that is still there today. Again, just another image of the train station. The platforms, etc., that were there for passengers to get onto the train and all. This is a coaling, C-O-A-L, coaling tower that the trains would be able to pull up to, and coal would be dumped into the hopper. That would obviously fuel the train and allow them to continue their journeys either east or west. Same coaling tower, but closer to the camera. You can see on both sides of the tracks, water source. There was water would have been pumped up through the piping that you can see and would have been distributed into the tender, coal tender, water tender, that would allow the train to create steam and power. This is just showing the coaling tower, and it looks like there's probably a couple train cars offloading coal. And again, closer to the image would be the water supply. Those big pipes could actually pivot closer to the camera. You can see where there were two water sources, that those big pipes could be rotated so that water could be dumped right into the hopper car. Again, that would be used to create steam for the engine and allow it to be propelled up and down the tracks. Just another image of Lower Main Street back in the day. Lower left-hand side, again, you can see, I guess, their version of a 7-Eleven store at Maryland Avenue and Main Street. Also, you can see the streetcar tracks as they are approaching the bridge there at Main Street just before the county line. An interesting image just showing the routing of trains, B&O trains in the early days. There was a northern route where the B&O train went along the Patapsco River up to Mount Airy and to points west. and also main line that went from Baltimore down towards Washington. And if you look real hard, or you would increase the size of the image, you can see all the train stops that the B&O would make going up the Patapsco River and also going down towards Washington, D.C. Again, this is just an image back in 1831, at least initially, showing where the train tracks, the train went from Baltimore up to Ellicott City, which was then referred to as the 1st Division. And a little bit up further towards Marriottsville, you can see where the tracks were extended to what was then known as the end of the 2nd Division. And this is all occurring around 1831. June 7th of 1940, the covered bridge you see on the right-hand side was destroyed on that particular day by fire. Not unknown, but questionable sources. But again, you can see covered bridge that carried vehicular traffic or horse and buggies over the Patapsco, then the actual trolley bridge, and then all the way to the left would have been Clark's hardware store. And I believe there's even a little gas pump there as well. This is the old flour mill. We're looking from the Baltimore County side to the spur that carried freight into and out of the mill. Quite productive and busy back in the day. Again, looking at the Elk City train station, the ticket office back in June of 1898. Rather interesting. I guess you can see a typewriter, and it looks like paper, I guess, printing out tickets or whatever, and just the other items that one would see in a train station ticket office area. Again, this is just an image directly across the tracks from the train station that allowed passengers to cross the tracks and wait in a sheltered area for a train to come along. It appears that there are a couple bags just past the shelter on the platform that I'm assuming would be items that would be picked up, put in the baggage car, and taken west. For those who don't recognize this is a water closet, as is designed in 1874. We call it a toilet. Not exactly 100% sure how it works, but apparently that was a water closet and early version of a toilet. And finally, just another picture. Actually, it's posted by a John Latchford back quite a few years ago, just showing a train pulling into the station at Ellicott City, where I'm sure it would be offloading passengers, and it looks like there's a small platform there that it would be picking up freight to take into Baltimore. Please use your remaining heartbeats wisely and not waste a single precious one.